So the second leg between Bayern Munich and Villarreal at the Allianz finally poised. Villarreal with a 1-0 victory at El Madrigal. Arno Danjuma with the goal. And they put in a performance that is archetypal of an Unai Emery side. The question is, can they repeat it? And why were they so successful in that first leg?
Well, I think Bayern Munich, I think, were kind of... the lineup was totally wrong for me. I think Nagelsmann got it wrong. Musiala played in midfield. I think they were trying to be careful with Goretzka, him coming back from a knee injury, and I understand that. But I think they lacked a bit of control. We spoke about it, actually, last week, didn't we? We said it was going to be Capoue, Pereiro against those midfield two. And of course, it didn't turn out to be. Having Musiala in that team just meant that there wasn't the same kind of cohesion in the team, I don't think. They still got 22 shots off. But what we also thought might happen was that it would be a little bit turgid, and only 4 of those shots were on target. So the cohesion, the chemistry wasn't there. And Villarreal are always really, really well set up under Unai Emery, of course. And I think what I was most impressed by, Hugh, was 12 shots that they had. They were far more impressive going forward than I expected them to be. But they are just a very, very well-coached, well-drilled side with a team that is going to be fresh for this game, having made 11 changes at the weekend. What were you so impressed by in that first leg? And do you think they've got enough to keep it going?
Well, what I'm used to seeing with Unai Emery sides on those great, and he's often had these performances where they've been the underdog and shocked their opponents, is the quality of the possession. Obviously, they had 38% possession. But when I say quality, I mean, you don't waste it. You take 1 or 2 touches. 3 is extreme. You make sure that you play it safe. You get it to your teammate. And of course, you don't play risky, silly balls. And the other thing was, they reminded me of Atletico Madrid in the peak under Diego Simeone. Not necessarily as aggressive, but when they went forward, it was in numbers and it was very simple. Run into space, play passes into space. And I think Bayern Munich found that difficult to cope with, actually, surprisingly so. But I think you're right. It was the control over the game. Musiala, more of an individual player, didn't use the ball as well, despite the fact they had all that possession that you mentioned. I think that stopped them from creating the kind of clear-cut goal-scoring opportunities that you'd expect a Bayern Munich side to make.
And on the other side of it, Hugh, you've also got how exposed that made the defence. Because if you have both of those players there, Kimmich and Goretzka there, you can have that little bit more protection for a back four that we spoke about last week. That is a little bit shaky at times, isn't it?
I think absolutely it is. I think look, Danjuma has got a lot of credit for what he's done over the past couple of games in the Champions League. But I also thought Lo Celso was excellent just in terms of making those midfield runs, giving those defenders something to think about. And that single holding midfielder in the end, who do I go with? And actually, it was interesting because I know I mentioned Simeone's side. They used to break with 2 or 3. And actually what you saw, particularly in the first half, was 4 or 5 runners. Whenever they had the opportunity to commit forward, they did. And interestingly, I think they used the atmosphere superb as well. I do think it will be a more difficult challenge for them going away from home, but I actually think they are set up very well to cope with that. Their style of play definitely suits a team away from home. They could cause a shock here.
So the big question is, are Villarreal now favourites for the tie? Of course, they go away to Bayern Munich in this one. I also think one thing that we didn't touch on there was the fact that scoring after 8 minutes is just a dream for Villarreal. And bizarrely, we were talking about the game and thinking at best they could maybe get a 1-0 victory. In the end, they nearly, I think Francis Coquelin with the goal that was disallowed, it could have been so much better for them. Do you think that they will kind of regret what's happened there in terms of not getting that second goal? Because we saw in the last tie that Bayern Munich can just absolutely destroy the opposition, and we would expect them to be that little bit better, especially in front of their home crowd. Do they go into this game as favourites?
Villarreal don't go into the game as favourites for me. I actually think they had really good chances in that first leg, and they definitely should have come away with more than one goal. Maybe left through it. I think so. You saw at the weekend, Bayern Munich aren't exactly firing on all cylinders in front of goal. Of course, the game against Villarreal, as you mentioned, didn't really click in front of goal either, despite the number of shots that they had. But I think they'll score at least once. Does that mean that the game goes to extra time? It could well do so. And then I think the home crowd makes a difference for Bayern Munich. So I think the first half is going to be massive at the Allianz between Bayern and Villarreal. And it is all on, I think, how Unai Emery's side cope. He changed the entire team at the weekend, so they've got fresh legs.
Do they stick with Sergio here at centre-back? Yeah. What do you think?
Absolutely not. They don't even stick with him at right back, as far as I'm concerned. But the reality is, I think they have a commitment to his style of play. He has something about him in terms of a character and personality in one-off ties. We've seen them, of course, lift the Europa League against the odds in many ways, and they still embody that kind of underdog spirit. Going to a Bayern Munich, they almost relish it. They've got a huge appetite for fixtures like this. And it is nicely set up for them if they can get an early goal. So I actually think, what do? Do you sit back? Do you wait for Bayern Munich to do something? Absolutely not. A bit like the first leg, you try and shock them early, go out there, you throw it onto Bayern Munich as hard as you can, because you know that if you get that first goal and you go 2 goals up, then you can sit behind the ball. And they are very, very good at having that organized structure and stopping teams from having chances at them. So first goal, all important. I'll come to my score prediction in a bit, but what do you think about that?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I do. And I think there's also some clear changes in the lineup that can be made that I think could be very, very useful. You know, bringing in Leroy Sané into this side, I think would be important. Of course, didn't play in that first game. Serge Gnabry played on that left-hand side. The cohesion wasn't there. Kingsley Coman on the right-hand side. I think if you can bring Serge Gnabry over to the right, get Sané on that left-hand side, I think you've got a much better team, as we've spoken about earlier. Get Goretzka in that side as well if you can, and I think it will start to look a lot better. My prediction is that I think they will just about sneak through Bayern Munich. I think it'll be very difficult, but I think they will get that goal in the first half. Being at home, that will give them the momentum. And I think it might be tight. I think it could be a 2-0, maybe even a 3-1. I'm going to go with a 3-1. I think Villarreal might sneak a goal, but I think Bayern Munich will just about squeeze through. What are you saying then? You've been holding out. What's your prediction? Come on.
We're headed for extra time, as far as I'm concerned. I think Villarreal will get a goal in the game, but I think Bayern Munich will get 2. And then I think it's all decided in that final 30. I don't think it will reach penalties. I think Bayern will have enough to get another goal. I think it will be 3-1, but after extra time. Hi, I'm Hugh Woozencroft from ESPN's Football Forecast. Make sure you're subscribed. You can follow all of our predictions throughout the season and get some other great analysis from our big names as well.